Today we're talking about a deeply troubling issue in the Magic the Gathering community that has had some promising developments recently, thanks to the efforts of today's guest. According to niche gamer Jeremy Hambly, is a polarizing figure who has a well-deserved reputation for being an asshole. He's loud, he's opinionated, and he doesn't care who approves. With more than 180,000 YouTube subscribers, he runs the channels Unsleeved Media and The Quartering. Thank you, or actually, Jeremy, thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I chose that read-in. You
That's
have a lot
pretty
in
good.
common with me.
Yeah.
You're an asshole.
Yeah.
Well,
no apologies.
we did. Yeah, we were reading the niche gamer articles on kind of what's going on with that, and I grew up playing Magic the Gathering myself about 20 years. I haven't played in a long time, but I did remember enjoying the game a lot. But before we get into that, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I mean, I've been, well, I'm from Wisconsin, beautiful Wisconsin, and I've been YouTubing for more than 10 years. I started out with computer repair and then Magic the Gathering and hobby grade RC cars, things like that, and then more of the political issues on the quartering now. But I YouTube for a hobby. I work a full-time job. I have an advertising agency, and that pays the bills. So it gives me a little more freedom with YouTube than maybe some people do, than some people have. And I've been covering Magic now for 5 or so years on YouTube. And I started playing in 95, 94, when I was maybe 12 or 13 years old. So I've been playing for 20 years or so. So I've been around.
Yeah, I remember playing the original, I guess it was the 3rd edition or revised, whatever it was.
Yeah, that's when I started, right around there.
Yeah.
My brother played Magic. I was into D&D. I didn't play Magic. I was one
Yeah,
of those
yeah.
girls that lurked over the corner.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm kind of making a reference to a tweet you had sent out.
Yeah.
I was the stand over the shoulder.
What, at a tournament, though? Not at
No,
a
I'm
tournament,
kidding.
right?
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't do that.
Oh, okay. I only had a problem. I have a problem with it because it's like, I feel bad
yeah.
for the girlfriend that's sitting there. Like, how's that
Yeah.
exciting? But
I don't like
could be wrong.
those girls who get dragged to Tool concerts or into
Yeah,
comic
yeah.
book shops. And they're the ones rolling their eyes, stomping their feet, asking when they can go somewhere else that they want to enjoy. So,
Right. You don't have to. I think there's value in having separate hobbies. There's value in having separate things you do. So I don't like to force it on anybody. So yes, successful dig achieved by you just 1 minute in.
Yeah.
So we'll keep score.
So I guess just to cut to the chase, tell us what happened, or at least a step behind that. Tell us what happened January 12th, I think, with regard to Magic the Gathering that you were really pleased with.
Yeah, well, they basically rolled out sweeping background checks for almost anybody around the game, meaning if you run the large tournaments, if you work in the local game stores, if you even run events in the local game stores, you have to pass I would say at least a reasonably simple background check. They're not weeding out people that shoplifted something when they were 14, or people who have speeding tickets, or people got busted with a bag of weed. That's not what they're screening for. It's violent offenders that they're trying to weed out now, thankfully.
So
offenses against other people.
Yeah,
Mainly children.
Specifically. Yeah, underage. Yeah.
So what prompted these changes?
Well, I would say a pretty loud crusade for about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. A while ago, the 30,000-foot view is I was banned from attending Magic the Gathering events back in November or December for being mean on the internet, quite frankly, and posting Pepe memes based on the evidence that they showed me. I mean, it was Pepe memes, and it was me being a bit of a dick, and which is absurd because this is like my personal social media. I'd been attending events for over 15 years and never, ever had a bad interaction. But nonetheless, I was permanently banned without an opportunity to even appeal. So naturally, I did not take this lightly. And I opened up an anonymous tip line, essentially, and said, all right, if they're going to worry about what I'm posting on social media, then let's dig a little bit into what they're posting on social media. That's kind of where it started. And the very first email I got was about a sex offender in the program who is a judge and had judged events after their conviction. And then once I leaked that, then it was like a landslide. Then it was another one, then another one, then another one. And I had almost a dozen within 2 weeks.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. And so you say you got banned for being mean, quote unquote, or I guess being a little edgy. What was like the immediate proximal cause? Like, was there a particular individual that you had interactions with that you may have talked to or about that might have, I guess, set your ban in motion?
Yeah, I mean, a popular cosplayer, somebody with a lot of friends, Christine Sprankle.
For anyone listening, we're going to post down in the description a link to Count Dankula's video. We just watched it this morning, which gives a little bit of backstory to the story that we're telling right now. He kind of goes into detail.
Yeah, he lays it out, and he basically, I don't know what day, it was like on Thanksgiving or something, and she tweeted out something like, Jeremy's, I'm quitting because of the years of harassment, and then she named me as the source of it, which is absurd. When you're an internet, I hate using this terminology, but when you're an internet personality, look, you can scrub my tweets all day long and you'll find something. I've been tweeting for 10 years. I've been doing live streams for 10 years. I've been doing, so the best evidence they had was basically a live stream I did 6 months ago where I was drunk and I was a little harsh, I admit. Again, not harassment, certainly in my opinion and my right to share it. And then a couple of tweets over, a 5-year period of time. The reality is I've made a lot of enemies in this space because I'm abrupt, I'm brash. And
what did you say? Like, what were your criticisms of her?
Okay, sure. I can remember it clearly because it's burned into my memory now. She had tweeted out in this video, which has now been flagged down. I'm appealing to YouTube because it was not harassment, but that's neither here nor there. She had posted this screenshot of some, I'm sure some 14-year-old kid that left a comment on one of her videos that said, I'm pretty sure this is exactly what it said. I came for the cosplay, but I left with a boner. And like, okay, fine. I mean, whatever. She does sexy cosplay. She does all sorts of cosplay with her like nips poking out and sitting in sexual positions. Don't even so that kind of makes me angry. But really what the video was me making fun of all the guys who were coming to her aid. I really wasn't making fun of her. I think I made fun of her for being a pretty dramatic, like she had survived actual assault. It was you should see what people write about me, and so I was making fun of all the white knights in her comments who were like, oh, milady, I can't believe you had to deal with this. Oh. It's like an egg account that said, I don't even understand. So anyway, that's basically what I did. That was 6 months before she quit, by the way. And that was like basically the last interaction I had with her. And it wasn't even interaction. It was just a video I did. And all of a sudden when she quit, it was because of some sustained harassment from me, which was total BS. And I'm very thankful Count Dankula did that video because it basically breaks it down in chapter and verse and proves that it's, I can be a dick, but no harassment ever happened. But because I made so many enemies over the years by being, harshly criticizing people, this was like a huge opportunity for the community to pounce on me and push me out. That's really what it was. It wasn't necessarily about her. That's what they hung their hat on. But it was really about, okay, here, now we have an opportunity to push them out.
They wanted to believe.
Yeah, they wanted to get rid of you, and they said, finally, this is going to be what we're going to pull.
Yeah. And she lied. She lied.
Yeah.
She was quitting cosplaying to go back. She told her patrons who pay her money to hear her opinion that she was going back to school. So,
okay.
but she publicly posted that she was quitting because of so much harassment.
And if Dankula actually shows this at the end of his video, is that if you look at her patron support, it steadily declines. And then when she made this announcement, it spiked significantly.
It was at an all-time low when she quit. Yeah. No surprise, right? So it was about the money. It was about getting even. Yeah. It was about, getting, and I firmly believe had I just disappeared, she would have come back, and she would have, because she had all that money, Yeah. And then in my opinion, she was forced to close her Patreon because for 2 months it stayed up and she was collecting money. And then I was vocally criticizing her, and then she finally shut it down. Yeah. But, I would have rather she stayed, to be clear. I didn't want her to go anywhere. I don't have any problem with cosplay. The video.
You were just calling it out for what it is.
Yeah. I just don't like people who would come in and take advantage. These young men in this community, they are young and they are thirsty. And whether or not she's a fan is irrelevant. I'm just hyper protective of the young men in this community because it's really easy to take advantage of them. This cosplay for this Patreon cosplay stuff, in a lot of ways, in my opinion, can be like a form of courtship for these guys, where they're like, if I give her $5, I can have some sort of access to her. It's like she's my girlfriend. It's really sick. And so whether or not
it's manipulative, even if it's emotional,
that's my opinion. Yeah.
I do truly believe that a lot of young women don't realize that they're manipulating. I remember being young, and I remember I wasn't like that, but I remember having young friends that I genuinely do not think they knew what they were doing. Once you hit a certain age, I'd say 25, 26, you learn.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's kind of like the male friends. You don't realize that these orbiters are just waiting for you to break up with your boyfriend. You're like, oh, no, they're really my friends.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right. And that's about the age, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's about the age. 25, 26, I think, is when I learned.
And she's a young kid. And the other thing is, too, like, I think that's very true. Just like, gosh, if I had, like, girls lining up to buy me drinks at the bar when I'm 21, I'd be like, this is the greatest thing ever. Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. Just stand next to me.
Wow. You're so smart, Jeremy.
Yeah. Ooh, tell me more about Magic the Gathering. But I can see, I think that's fair. But so I'm extra critical of cosplayers. I mean, let's be honest. Name a male cosplayer that's raking in thousands of dollars a month in Patreon. There's none. I mean, I would be, and you have like Jessica Nagiri. She's like $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 a month. I think that's great, but these dudes, I mean, she's kind of a prostitute, in my opinion. Her cosplay is great. That's not the right word.
She's more of an entertainer.
Yeah, okay, entertainer. That's fine. And you know what? If you want to pay for that, that's totally cool. That was one thing that got mixed up in my. People were like, "Well, dude, you're a capitalist. Who cares?" And I'm like, my opinion is, no, I don't care. But at the same time, I have every right to just try to make sure some people's eyes are open and say, like, look, she's not going to she's not going to give you any special attention in real life. If you walk up to her at a GP and you tell her you're a patron, she's not going to care. She's not going to go out to the movies with you. Like, just know that going in. I mean, people still pay for porn these days, which I can't understand. But I mean, they do, and that's their money, and that's fine.
So your concern isn't so much that she's making money, it's that you feel like there's a manipulation there and you don't want these guys taken advantage of.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay. And like you said, I'd be
young
willing.
And impressionable.
Yeah, I would be willing to give her the benefit of the doubt because she's young.
And jealous.
I don't know,
Jeremy, you're jealous.
No, well, I guess if I could get thirsty young women to give me their money for me to play dress up, yeah, I am jealous of that. That's fair to say. But that would be much easier than being just another neckbeard on the internet. Like, I've got to grind 5 times as hard. But I don't think it probably was ever like, well, I can just take advantage of these dudes. Like, probably not, but maybe. So I criticized it like a few times ever, you know?
I will say I also kind of feel sorry for her in a way. I know it sounds like a weird, cheap thing to say, but she's learning behaviors that aren't going to serve her well when she's older. Like a lot of young women, even if you're just marginally attractive, if you learn that just by wearing lingerie you can get a lot of money, that's not going to serve her very well when she's older. Like, had I taken advantage of being young and hot the way she is, I wouldn't have developed the kind of skills that got me to almost 30 years old. Because by the time my looks started to fade, I would have been shit out of luck.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, because it's like, you can't be mad at them for falling into that trap, but you just wish they had better friends.
You wish they had better parents, too.
Or parents,
because my parents taught me when I was 12 and 13 and 14, once my boobs started to come in, that they weren't going to be where they were forever. And that, you know, that I needed to develop other skills. And so I think that's something that how old is she?
I don't know. She's in her early 20s, I'm guessing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of feel bad for her that her mom didn't teach her better.
Yeah, I don't know her mom. I know she. I'm not even going to say that. That's mean. I don't know her mom.
Her dad probably maybe wasn't in the picture. So
I don't think he was.
When I say I feel bad for her, by the time she's in her early 30s,
yeah, she's not gonna
be getting Patreon money anymore.
Yeah, right.
She's gonna be not where she is.
Waiting tables, you know,
probably she's going to be working in a Waffle House.
Yeah. The you know, I have a twin sister, so I went through all the same things. Like, I grew up with a sister who, you know, had the same sort of struggles. You know, she had to work harder to be taken seriously in some cases, but you know, she kept her head down. And
she doesn't have as nice of a beard as you do.
That's
why she had to work hard.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But I mean, it's you know, I do feel bad. I don't think she had a great role model growing up, and I think cosplay is fine. My whole thing is like, if a company wants to pay an artist, if Wizards of the Coast wanted to pay her $50,000 a year to do full-time cosplay, great. Okay, make sure you get an education while you're doing that. But whatever. When you get into the Patreon world, and this is, I accept that this is hypocritical, I guess, because I have a Patreon. Why can't she have a Patreon? And I think that's fair criticism. I can't deny how I feel. And I just feel like, man, it's so easy for someone to just, you know, she bought her costumes off Amazon. She wasn't some kind of crazy, like, artist of cosplay.
She wasn't like a Yaya Han or something like that.
Yeah. Or there's even other Magic the Gathering cosplayers. Moxie, I forget what her name is. She makes all her own costumes, and if you get into that, that's cool. But
I have a lot of respect for those girls, the ones who actually sew and put together really complex costumes. I'm on the RPF, the Replica Prop Forum, because I've done not costumes, but I've done other things in robotics, and I think some of that stuff is amazing. Especially when you see them toiling for 40 hours a week, you know, for months.
And scale is always really, I love scale stuff, and like
Agreed.
So I totally nerd out on that. Yeah. So
or when they transition something, like from male to female or something.
Oh yeah.
I think it's very interesting, the cosplay world. But I do agree with you that there is something that is, I don't know how to put my finger on it, but there's something a little frustrating about a girl that can just leverage her looks to make a bunch of money off young idiots who will probably never meet her and who you know are being manipulated.
There's something that feels very exploitative about it.
Yeah, that's probably the word. I mean, it's just, I don't want to gatekeep, so to speak, but once you put a Patreon there and you start, a lot of these cosplayers, you know, they'll have like, you know, a tier where you get access to a specific Snapchat, or a tier where you get erotic, you know, not nudes, but like more sexy photos. It's like, okay, you're a cam girl, fine, that's fine. But like, can you not like bilk my community? Can you just like, I respect your, whatever, do your thing. But like, I just don't want the money being extracted from people in my community. And maybe that's it's probably a little too puritanical. I'm not really I'm not a Puritan. I don't know. It feels
you identify weird. That something feels exploitative about it, and you feel the need to speak out about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
So now we've established why you are an asshole in the community.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I want to kind of get to why we brought you on.
Right. So as we mentioned earlier, because we well buried the lead here, I guess Wizards of the Coast, whomever's in charge of this, they finally instituted these background checks for these volunteer judges. Tell us about what is this judge program, and what the more the specifics of what's going on with it. What are the problems here?
Yeah. So when you play this game in any competitive event, whether it be a Friday Night Magic, which happens every week on Fridays, or in a larger event, there has to be at least one judge present in order for Wizards to, quote, sanction the event. And larger events would need many judges. A Grand Prix, the last one I went to, had like 6,000 people. It probably had hundreds of judges. Grand Prix Vegas 2 years ago had 10,000 people. So you're probably talking about 500 plus judges for that. And Wizards can't afford to pay these judges. And so they built this system, of course, where, in my opinion, I'm going to editorialize a little bit. But I can do that because I'm not a reporter. The Wizards takes advantage of their biggest fans. These people donate their time. They work for free or close to nothing. Some tournament organizers will throw them like a booster box, or if they judge an event, they'll get store credit. But these guys and gals that do this, they do it because they love the game. No one goes to become a judge to make any money. They get like special promos once in a while from the company that makes the game. But Wizards actually has a very clear. I mean, there's a class action lawsuit going on right now in California where a bunch of these judges have organized, and they're suing them to basically unionize or to say they were employees. And so they're very clear. You saw this in their press release. The judges are a fan-run organization. Everybody who's not a lawyer views them as some level of an employee. I don't know what would be a good practical. It'd be like saying realtors aren't employees of real estate companies, or maybe because they don't draw a salary, but once in a while they get paid. I don't know if that's fair, but so they're always at these events, and Wizards created a system where the event isn't like legit unless there's a judge there. So Wizards says a judge has to be there, but Wizards doesn't or can't pay for the judges to be there. So they use these volunteers.
So it's like an unfunded mandate.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll fund it with these special promo cards that are often worth several $100s that judges will get every once in a while, but we're still not talking about much money. Judge promos, a couple $100 a year, maybe. I'm not an expert, but they're not living off it, certainly. Yeah.
So this is the judges program. It has to be there. They're not paid. So what was it that a little bit more of the specifics on what was uncovered?
So, I mean, it'll be hard to explain without using like the proper terminology. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
All right. So when I do like a YouTube live stream, I'll try to think of like unique ways to call it something else.
Yeah.
So basically this all broke because one dude cheated at a game of Magic. That's how it all broke. So 6 months ago, a guy cheated at a game of Magic. His name was Ross Prasnir. The guy he was playing went on tilt, basically, because he had, in his opinion, had cheated him. Obviously, I wasn't there. And the judge sided with him at the event. Well, then he found out that this guy was also a judge. So he's thinking at that time, like, oh, that's some, judge on judge nepotism or whatever, favoritism there. Goes home, Googles the guy to see if he had done this ever before. And lo and behold, he had been arrested in like 2014 for possession of child pornography. and was a registered sex offender. And these events, certainly he's probably in violation of some level of his parole. I'm not sure. I haven't seen his exact court documents, or all of them anyway. But I mean, these events are often dominated by people of all ages, from 8 to 80. There's a lot of kids around. So he probably, well, he'll openly admit, out of spite, he reported him to the Judge Association at that time as saying, like, yo, you have this registered sex offender in your program. This isn't right. Like, they're in a position of power, supervision over children. This is weird, and nothing happened. Fast forward to when I opened the inbox, this same guy, he's publicly said it, so I don't mind. He won't care if I say his name, Travis LaPlante, emails the same thing to me. And then he sends me the receipts. He's like, look, I sent this in 6 months ago. They did nothing. Here's a screenshot of when I talked to the tournament organizer and I told them, and they did nothing. And then here's where I talked to the judge and he did nothing. Meanwhile, Wizards of the Coast puts out this statement, and I quote something like, we've had a longstanding policy of a zero tolerance policy for sex offenders in this program, which obviously we know is not true. So once I put out his information, and to be honest, I felt bad for the guy. Like, I know what it's like to be banned. Oh, go on. I felt bad for Ross for getting banned. Eventually he was banned from the game. Okay. I have to believe in the court system and rehabilitating people, and you just have to, in my opinion. And he did his time.
Which was how long?
Nothing. It was just a few weekends, basically.
That's what I recall. There being like
2
months of weekends.
Yeah, it was a pathetic sentence. Should have been longer. You shouldn't be able to work around it and just go in on the weekends, in my opinion, for that kind of stuff. But he was by far the least offensive. I put him out. Then I find out about Jason Long, who was a judge, had committed some sexual crime with a 14-year-old, became a registered sex offender, opened a game store as a sex offender. The prison, after he got his offense, got to go back to the game store and work there anyway. And then
I'm sorry, like my brain is just like exploding right now. That
yeah.
What state was this in? California?
Illinois.
Okay.
He was registered in Cook County, opened his store in a different county. Doesn't matter. I'm sure his parole officer would not have approved that.
Yeah.
And then he gets hired by a company, Pastime Games, to be a judge. The owner who hired him knew he was a sex offender, hired him anyway, based on three different anonymous emails, or emails from different people. This guy knew, hired him anyway, and then put him judging all these events down at Gen Con, all these other things. And then he did it again. So he put him in a position as a registered sex offender, and then he ends up paying some 14-year-old kid to blow him or something like that.
Wow.
The kid's parents find out, of course, and report him to the police. His court date starts like next week too.
There is almost a zero rehabilitation rate on that crime.
I know. Yeah, it's sad.
We've decided collectively in the Western world that is the one crimes against children, that even murderers will shank you in prison over.
Yeah. There's you know what I would say? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's just, I mean, the fact that they don't take this seriously. And I was telling Jacob earlier when we were kind of researching and reading these stories, the stories pertaining to what you're talking about right now. It blows my mind that they allowed these people to be judges, because I'm a mother, and it is a given as a parent that when you allow your children to go to either summer camp or any kind of activity where they're going to be around anyone 18 or above that's going to be taking care of your child, it is just a given that person's had a background check. You don't even
kind of assume it. Yeah, you kind of assume that.
Yeah.
That's right. You know what's crazy about
given that they've had tuberculosis shots, or tuberculosis tests. They've had all of their vaccinations, and that they're not a sex offender, or at least they haven't been caught.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And that they're not violent. That they passed a background check. They've never had a DUI. I mean, that's a given as a parent. You shouldn't have to ask, hey, have all your judges passed a background check? I've done volunteer work with after school programs, and I know it was $38 to get a live scan, which is where they do your background check and the TB test. And it was $38. So why not just have each of the judges do a background check?
The funny thing was, by the way, to go back on your like 0% rehabilitation, there's a documentary called A Place for Pedophiles. It's like 1 hour long. Louis Theroux did it. I kind of like his stuff, even though he's like kind of far left leaning guy. But it's this place in Arizona where it's like, it's a huge facility of pedophiles who finished their prison sentence, and they're just like, what do we do with them? You know, they can't really find any place to live, so they end up basically it's a life sentence, you know?
Because they can't be 1,000 feet from kids or anything.
Yeah, and good luck trying to rent an apartment, right? Like nobody's going to rent. You have to disclose that sort of thing. But the craziest thing is, so that's two. There is there's another judge in Florida that had thousands of images and videos on his computer, including things, including such, infant stuff, like disgusting. Jesus. Animals, infants, just abhorrent, right?
Yeah. And this guy was a judge.
Yep. There's another judge in California.
Well, now I see how these people get 2 months worth of weekends.
I know. Why? Who cares, right? What's the penalty?
No, but I mean, if judges are getting busted.
Oh, no. I think he's talking
about
the magic judge.
Magic judge. Okay, I thought you meant a judge, like a circuit judge.
We kind of crossed that a little bit, but that's all right.
Yes. Sorry, magic judge. Yeah. These are people that, just 2 weeks ago, I showed, even after everything, I showed a registered sex offender who had won a game day tournament like 3 weeks ago. So I just kept exposing like more and more things. And then finally they had to act. And it's really sickening that so many people either, like, I know for a fact that because of who was the messenger, that was an issue. If one of the more like PG channels out there would have done a video, everyone would have called him or her a god, Instead, I'm a troll, or I'm people are calling me alt-right. Like there were live streams that now have been deleted after my very public vindication that were like, these are pillars of the community saying that I was just lying about making it all up. And like my documentation that I show is flawless. Like I have the court documents, timelines when they were convicted, timelines when they worked as a judge. It's irrefutable. And some of these people, the guy in California, by the way, I had a lifetime ban, right? David Park, who molested 2 teenage girls that were his students, which is especially disgusting, only got a 5-year ban until I pointed that out. And I was like, yo, this guy molested kids. He has a 5-year ban. Are you kidding? He'll be back. He'll be back in
2020.
Yeah. Well, he was ready to come back this year. I think he got banned in, he got banned in 2014. So yeah, 2019, 2020. I'm like, what the hell? And then all of a sudden they quietly updated it to a lifetime ban. I mean, it was like,
wait, so you got a lifetime ban for
mean words on the
harassing, for being a little bit mean to somebody?
Yeah, that's fair.
And this guy got a 5-year ban originally?
Yeah. Well, there's a guy who, there's a guy.
Bullshit.
Yeah. There's a guy, Zach Jesse, who did his time. I don't know the details of the case. I don't want to side with anybody. It's bad anyway, but I think what I know of it is he was like two drunk people. One person might have regretted it. I don't know. I wasn't there. Anyway, he got charged with rape and went to prison, right? Gets out a few years later, and he's playing on a big stage. This is a few years ago. And the announcer of the event's like, hey, by the way, in case this guy's such a cunt. Sorry, but Drew Levin. He's like, hey, in case anyone wants to know, this guy's a literal rapist. And he says it like on the live stream in front of like 7,000 people or whatever. And I'm like, Jesus, you let him in. What do you want? Like, you didn't have any policy in place. You can't kick him out now. Plus, he's playing another 30-year-old man. What are you worried about? And they did the same thing. He got a less sentence than I did. He gets to come back in like 2040. Now, the game probably won't be around then, but I mean, like, they are so inconsistent in how they enforce these bans, and it's just like they are so I have to think that they're either lying or that incompetent that I can just like throw a dart at a board, find a pedophile, look at the DCI ban list. Oh, this guy's not banned, and then they're like, whoa, and they add them, and then I'm like, oh, here's another one. Whoa. You know,
they haven't thought to run all the names themselves.
They have it. They have the list. I have the list of every judge in the country, in the world, every level 2 judge and above, because somebody on the inside who's not a fan of pedos sent it to me. And, you know, and the crazy thing was how much they pushed back in the States to just pass the sex offender thing is like $15.
Okay.
So the Judge Association says publicly, well, we can't do this. This is before Wizard said, tough shit, you're going to do this. They say publicly, well, we don't have the money, right? So I say, I know that's bullshit. So I'm like, okay, I'll start a GoFundMe. So I started a GoFundMe. I put $1,000 of my own money in there. And I was like, here's enough to background check 100 judges, 100 judges who can't afford $15. Because I'm not going to pay for everybody, but you can use this as like your scholarship, right? My subscribers get about $500 in there, and it gets flagged down by judges. They've sent a bunch of flags in to GoFundMe and said that they didn't think I was going to give the money to them, that I was a fraud. I'm like, I put $1,000 of my own money in there. What are you kidding? Like, no, of course I would use that to, Then I talked to 2 regional coordinators in the judge program, and there's only 5 or 6 of those. And I'm like, hey, will you take this money? Will you sign on the dotted line to get the money? No, I don't want it. I don't want to get involved. So I knew that they were full of baloney about not being able to pay for it. But at the same time, my GoFundMe was legit. They could have got their money, and they flagged it. So finally, GoFundMe, I said, forget it. Just take it down. They can pay for it themselves. I mean,
so
it's so insane.
That begs the question: why are they trying to cover all this up?
Well, exactly, and that's why did they false flag down? I had on my quartering channel, I was really rising up. The channel's only got maybe 30 or 40,000 subscribers. It's not small, but I uploaded a video exposing this, and it was immediately flagged down as spam or misinformation, which it wasn't. And because my channel wasn't over 100,000 subscribers, I have to use like the pleb support, which means you send them an email and then you wait 3 days, and then they say, we're working on it. Then you send them another email and you wait 3 days and they say, we're working on it. Nothing changes, right?
Yeah.
Fortunately, Trusted Flagger, who's like kind of well known on Twitter, he's like, oh yeah, this is fake. Within like 10 minutes, my channel was back up, and they removed the strike last week, and I'm still having some other issues. I still can't upload, but I mean, that's right. Why? What other logical conclusion is there? You don't want to take the money for background checks. You don't want me exposing this stuff. Like, who else is? I mean, and there are many other people I didn't expose because I knew if I screwed up even one, I would
tank the entire well.
Yeah, and it could cost me a lot of money, personally.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I have many more even employees that were people sent stuff in, and I'm just like, well, this is kind of circumstantial. I could leak it out there as like just this is what someone emailed me, but
it's your ass if it's wrong.
Yeah. So, and it could be, in my opinion, it could be somebody trying to feed me bad information to discredit me. And this is not what I want to do. I want to be playing games.
Really quickly, is there a public database of all the parents of these Magic users that would be interested in knowing about this?
Oh, no, that would be a nice email to send out, though.
Yeah. I mean, me as a parent, honestly, I plan to, my children are very, very young right now. They're all under 5, but I would be very interested to know if they were involved in a game. I plan to have them gaming.
Yeah.
And I would be very interested to know if they were being exposed to people like this.
Well, Pokemon already does this. To be a Pokemon trainer, which they already background test. Yu-Gi-Oh, I think they already background test. So for
I know
Wizards,
Nintendo, if you work at a Nintendo booth, I know that they background check everybody.
It's current year. Everybody background checks. Like this is not a big. I mean, there are a whole web. There are like entire web companies that make their business on high volume background checks. Like I called up that Good Hire company, I think, and I was like, hey, what if I had to get like 1,000 background checks? Could you give a guy a deal? And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. $5 to $10. I'm like, okay. I sent that information to the judges. They don't want it. They don't care.
Wow.
And so there's many of them who.
So maybe this video.
Yeah.
Right here. Wow.
Yeah, it's one thing to be incompetent at something like this. It's another to pretend as that you really don't even want to know. Like, what the hell is that about?
Well, a lot of the response was because I have moles everywhere. They would send me screenshots where they're like, well, yeah, but what if we find out one of these judges have an active warrant? Then what do we do? I'm like, call the cops. Case closed. What do you mean?
Okay. Well, so.
Why is this a moral dilemma? They have an active warrant. Like, you just. If you are dumb enough to submit yourself to a background check with an active warrant.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You deserve
funny story.
To get by the way.
Funny story. So I do robotics, right? And I told you earlier that I was involved in after-school programs. Somebody that I knew that I went to college with when I went back, I was running the LA Robotics Club, and I was getting background checked so I could work with after-school programs, and everybody involved in my program was getting background checked, and one of the guys came back with one of these it was underage girl, and she was, I think, 14 or 15, and it was very bad. It wasn't like they dated. It was very bad, and he had gone to jail for it. And I even asked him, I was like, did you just think this wasn't going to show up?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, because it was in a different
also,
state.
please never talk to me ever again.
Oh, yeah, no. Campus police was called on him because he wasn't allowed to show up anymore. And then the campus, get this, it was in California. They told me that because I had a school group, because it was open to everyone on campus, I wasn't allowed to ban him. So I was like, okay, we don't have a school robotics club anymore.
How progressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Well,
exactly.
A lot of those,
it was
some
open to the public.
Some of the really, really far.
I made him extremely uncomfortable because I posted his background check on the door.
Oh, good. Yeah.
It was an underage girl. I mean, I wouldn't have normally done that, but it was like, boom.
There were actually a couple that were on my list that they were like, and I have a friend who was 18 and his girlfriend was 17 and they were dating and he was stupid and horny. And like, but you know what sucks for him? Like, he is a registered sex offender for his whole life now.
I know.
Like,
and that's not the same as 35-year-old man with a 15-year-old forced.
Yeah. No.
Violent, forced 15-year-old is not the same as an 18-year-old boy dating a 17-year-old. I know it's the same under the eyes of the law, but it's not the same under the eyes of Annika.
Yeah, well, and that's why the actual, so like, I mean, to me, it should just be zero tolerance for judge. You're talking about a volunteer position.
I agree.
I mean, this is not an inalienable right. This is not the ability to drive on roads. This is a volunteer unpaid position. Sorry, this is okay. Yeah. This is the worst of it. You're out free. You're not in jail. You can still play the game. You just can't judge. And I know, and the frustrating thing was, well, it wasn't. They actually admitted fault, which I didn't think would happen. Because I had the smoking gun. I had the initial email that was sent to the judge program. I had all these statements from people that know he was reported. And then when they actually put out the press release or the statement on Friday, they admitted it. They said, yeah, he was reported in July. But what they said was it was an administrative error I mean, I think I fell out of my chair because I was like bullshit so loud. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Why admit an error and then say, well, it's just," or you admit you screwed up, but then you just lie and say, I mean, nobody bought that.
So, with respect to that, take us through the process of you, I guess, trying to goad or cajole or get these people to move to institute these changes. Take us through that process.
Well, I mean, I think I don't want to give away all my secrets, but sure. I knew that connecting the judge program to Wizards of the Coast would put them in an extraordinarily bad position because they can't acknowledge they have any power over the judges, because if they do, then they lose a $10 million lawsuit in California. Because, if they in any way acknowledge the judges are employees, that's not going to bode well for their lawsuit. And so it was pretty easy to attach those two things together, the judges and Wizards, because, ultimately the buck stops with Wizards. They could, if they couldn't officially say it, they could gift $5,000 into a bank account and then the judges could take it and run their background checks. Or they could print out some judge foils that everyone could sell for $50. They do it already. They use these judge foils as a form of payment. That's what I don't like about it. Like they give them these cards with a known value, and then they're like, "Oh, we're not paying them anything." But so instead of just putting it all out there, I was releasing like one every single day for 3 weeks, and it just became, if you opened a single tweet that they would tweet out, it was like, "Yo, what's up with pedophiles?"
So you were creeping them out because the judges. So if you had released them all at once, they would have looked through it and said, "Okay, it's not me." Yep. But instead, you were mind fucking them. You were like, they had no idea if they were next.
Yep.
They didn't know. That's clever.
And they had no idea how many I had. Right. So, I mean, I ultimately did release everybody that I thought was,
the people that you
wasn't going to get me sued.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like 100% sure that was the only people I released. Like they had been convicted. But yeah, so it was just one a day. And then if you look at like any of their tweets from that, it was bad. Like there's hey, who's going to pre-release tonight? There'd be like 30 replies. 29 of them would be like, I'm not. I don't want to get raped by, I don't want to get whatever. I hear you have pedophiles. What about pedophiles? So everything they put out, people are just like, whoa, what's up with this? So they had to act because they had no idea how long this was going to go on. They never contacted me, which I thought they probably should have. They probably should have said, yo, can you just give us the whole list? I wouldn't have, but they probably should have, because if they really cared, what if I had like 100 names?
Well, okay. So one question I have, if you were to receive community support and people were to be willing to help crowdfund this and help you do these background checks, maybe just everybody picked a name and background checked it themselves. And people just, instead of helping you raise money, they instead just went and picked a name themselves and they could prove themselves. They just each did the $15 or however much it is. Would you be willing to push forward with this? And maybe, I mean, I'm assuming you have like a database of some sort centrally that you're keeping, right?
I mean, I have one, but I mean, I have zero doubt that we would have raised plenty of money to cover any gap. We would have raised probably $3 or $4 grand, which would have been plenty to cover, the 500 people that didn't have enough money to do a background check. So would I do that again? No, I wouldn't, because I gave them their chance and they told me to get bent. Now, would I crowdfund to help local game stores? Yeah, that I would probably do, because local game stores now have to bear this burden, which is unfortunate. Wizards of the Coast should have figured out a way to offset it, whether it's a special promo that they can sell or give them a discount on their product. Like a one-time, here's a free box and sell it and offset. They could have figured out a million ways to offset the cost to their local game stores, because without local game stores, the game dies. People need to have a place to play the game. You can't really play at Walmart or Target as much as they want to sell their product there, and they do. you need a game store. I was raised by a local game store. That's why this issue is so near and dear to me. When I was 13 years old, I would get on my bike with like $10 or $15 in my pocket and ride 5 miles into town. And I would get there when the card shop opened at 9 or 10, and I would leave at like 6 o'clock. And I was young. I mean, I could have been, I would have been right around the wheelhouse for some of these creeps. So, you know, I know the local game stores have this new burden, which sucks for them. And I do feel a lot of them are really pissed off at me right now. But if they were to work with me, I would definitely work to offset. I would put up another $1,000 of my own money. And, you know, it was frustrating because there are 3 or 4 channels that are just as big as me and not one of them stepped forward to give any money. Like if the 5 biggest YouTube channels who all make money doing this would put $1,000 in a fund, we'd cover almost all of it.
Yeah.
And not one of them stepped up. So it's like, part of me is like, I don't know, how many times can you stick your hand out and get whacked? You know, like, I'm just kind of like, you know what, screw you now, pay for it yourself. But I probably still would.
Did they show any concern like you? I mean,
Nope.
Did they speak out?
Nope, not one of them. The biggest channel in the space didn't even tweet about it. Yeah, they didn't even tweet about it.
Yeah.
Nothing. But they have access level. They have Access Journalism, which is the coast who flies these guys around the country. They flew them out to HasCon. They'll fly Channel Fireball. The guy that runs the event is flying this other guy to England this coming up week or whatever. So these guys sold their souls. One of them is a father, okay, which is not to get all like righteous here, but I mean, holy crap, you're a dad, and you didn't say like, okay, maybe I'm gonna risk these sponsorships because this is more important. No, he said nothing.
It's incredible. It's really incredible. So what kind of have you received, or what kind of reaction have you gotten after Magic the Gathering, or correction, Wizards of the Coast finally, announced this new policy?
I think it was overwhelmingly positive. People, I could watch the tide turning in real time. I wasn't the smartest or the most tactful, but I was the most diligent. So I had, 2 different YouTube channels. I had 3 different Twitter accounts. It was like a nonstop barrage every single day. And I could see it where like the first video I put out might have had like 200 dislikes. And then the last couple I started putting out would have like 30. And they would still have just as many views, or, I could see the tide turning. And because it's like, oh yeah, pedophile. And then I'm like, people see I have a PowerPoint with 12 of them, and they're like, whoa, okay, whoa, maybe something's here. There are judges. It's sad that people feel this way, but they feel like they lost. And so a lot of them are mad at me. The one guy posted about me being alt-right, neo-Nazi guy or whatever, or that the background checks are transphobic. Yeah, it's stupid.
It's just baseless accusations.
Yeah, I'm like, I voted for Obama, bitch. What do you mean? Yeah, I'm so racist really, that I voted for a black guy twice.
Yeah.
But so it doesn't even bother me anymore because I'm like, only idiots. Like when you say that, like I just know you're dumb.
I spoke out against sexual violence, and I had a friend call me alt-right as well.
Yeah, isn't that weird how that works?
Yeah. Same thing that you're doing right now. Speaking out against sexual violence, and a friend of mine, of course, he used a winky. He goes, "Are you going alt-right?" And then
but
winky.
There's
like,
a kernel there.
Sure, I'm alt-right.
Yeah,
if alt-right means I don't approve of rape, then yeah, I'm alt-right.
But didn't you know that rapists are a protected class on the progressive stack? Like you have to.
Look, you're using alt-right language.
Yeah.
You're moving. They're sweeping us further to the right.
Well, I used to think I was far left. Now I'm like far right, and my views haven't changed one bit.
It's incredible how
I got my mind blown by taking the political compass test, because I consider myself a former leftist, because the Overton window just passed. I still have all the same views. I still want all the same social benefits for the same people. Like I have all the same political views.
You didn't really change that much.
No, I didn't really change that much. I mean, I'm the
You're
same
probably a little
person I
more
was a
fiscally
decade ago.
conservative now, right?
Do what?
You're probably a little more fiscally conservative now than you were 10 years ago.
Because I pay taxes.
Right. That's what I mean. So like there's that saying where it's like
real quick.
But
even when I was poor, I was about the same views on taxes because my plan wasn't to always stay poor.
Yeah.
So even when I was like living in my car, which I was literally living in a car. I still had the same views on taxes, even when I wasn't paying taxes. But yeah.
Well, there's that saying that.
But I'm more fiscally. Sorry not to cut you off. I'm more fiscally conservative now than I was.
My dad always used to say that's not my dad's initial. That's not his creation. I've heard other people say it, but he always would say like, well, if you're not a liberal when you're in your 20s, you're heartless, and if you're not a conservative in your 30s, you're brainless.
Yeah, that's a common saying.
Yeah, and I don't even consider myself conservative, to be honest. I've always still considered myself, liberal, but it doesn't mean the same thing as it did when I like identified as that 10 years ago. Right. Now I don't even. They're socialists now. If you want to be, if you're true liberal, you're socialist. Then I don't know. I don't buy all that.
Yeah. So now that you've or at least helped achieve this, what's next going forward?
Well, I think, as I said in the I said this to my subscribers too. Like, I'm going to try to give them a little while to just relax and enjoy the quote victory, because everyone worked really hard for this. We had to yell 10 times louder than somebody who would be perceived differently in the community. If one of my peers, who has a good relationship with Wizards would have made a video, it would have happened overnight. And, so we had to work way harder. And I'm just going to kind of get back to gaming content for a little bit. And I've got my quartering channel back, so I'm going to stick my politics over there now. And, eventually I'd like to get unbanned. That would be nice. Since I was, not banned for reasonable reasons. But I have almost no hope of that because, egos are a thing. I have one, they have one. And for them to unban me, that would be really unlikely.
We've been speaking with Jeremy Hambly. I guess you can call him Magic the Gathering Malcontent for Justice. Where can people find you online?
Well, they can follow me on Twitter at Unsleeved Media or The Quartering. Both are me. Or on YouTube with Unsleeved Media or The Quartering. Both are also me. So The Quartering is a little more commentary related. Unsleeved Media is just basically everything you might see behind me if you're watching the video, or if you're listening. It's just everything kind of gaming that is like a trading card game or a strategy game. Not like Call of Duty stuff, but like strategy games and stuff like that I try to cover. So, yeah.
Right.
I'm going to want to have you back on as like an update, or maybe to speak about something a little more positive.
Yeah, it did. A lot of people were trying to just do mental health checks with me because it does, reading these court cases and just nonstop, just really, really terrible people. It did have a negative effect on me. My hair's thinning out a little more now after all this, but at the end of the day, long after I'm done, long after I leave the community, after I'm done with the game, I can at least look back and say like, hey, I did something good, and that's worth it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And maybe you and I can game together when you get a VR unit.
Yeah. I would love to. Yeah, I have lots of room down here, so I would love to. It seems fun.
We'll do a gaming video.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy Hambly, thank you very much for joining us today.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Look forward to talking to you again.